Welcome back to another video in our series about how do we help students take an anti-boring approach to their own learning. And the quick answer is we as educators embody a number of characteristics that help students own their own learning by watching us own our teaching and coaching process with them. But today we're going to look at two characteristics that I find are the ones that change the educators' lives who come into my training program, change them the most. It changes their personal lives, not just their teaching lives, which means these two characteristics also have the power to change students' lives as well. We're going to dive in just a second, but first I want to say stick around to the end and I'll give you a little script that you can go out and try with students immediately to put these characteristics into action. And if you anticipate that this is going to be helpful for you, why don't you give us a like and subscribe? Pretty please, I would sure appreciate it. Okay, so anti-boring students and their educators are obsessed, I love that word, are obsessed with the least we need to know to take effective action. Now, if you have been watching this series, you've already heard me reference this idea of the least we need to know. And you've probably understand at this point that it's really important for educators who are the person in authority in a teacher-student relationship. It's important for us to track how much information am I dumping into the student's brain, and how much of it is truly necessary for the student to change their own life. We tend to be so self-important, we educators, and I say that with so much love, right? So much love. We tend to think that what we think and what we know and how we're crafting the class or the curriculum or the coaching session is so important to the student. Then we just want to give the student everything we have to give today, this week, this year. But we're centering ourselves when we do that, actually. We're centering our knowledge, our understanding. And it can be a bit oppressive for students to have us think that we know so many important things that we must give the student. It's really important for us to learn how to hone, to whittle down our knowledge, to give students the least they need to know to take effective action, and then to layer new knowledge on as the student shows that they're able to integrate what we've been sharing, or that they want or are curious about the next strategy, the next tool, the next habit, the next piece of knowledge. We would ideally love the students to be asking the questions to draw it out of us in the future after we've given them the most important nuggets of our wisdom. So that's what I'm referring to here when I say the least we need to know. But check this out. In the series, I'm not just saying that the educators are obsessed with. I'm saying students are obsessed with the least we need to know. So what do I mean by students in this case? I find that students are burdened by thinking, I have to learn all this information, right? I have to, or I'm gonna fail. And so even just approaching the reading of a textbook, for example, can be so overwhelming because there are so many words. It's just like, oh my God, how am I gonna read all of this, much less remember all of this? But a student who is an anti-boring student, who is obsessed with the least I need to know, understands how to skim a reading before they actually read it. They understand how to look for what's the structure of the information here. They understand even to think about that when they're watching a lecturer's slides. What's the least that's important here? And how about I pay attention to that first and then hang all the extra ideas and the extra knowledge onto that basic structure? That's the secret to a student's success, is to be able to be proactive about searching for the least they need to know when they're analyzing their learning resources that are available to them. How can students do this, though, if educators don't model it and teach students how to pay attention to the least they need to know? That it's actually okay to build your expertise in a smaller domain first and then layer on new skills and new knowledge and new abilities on top of that. This is why I love this characteristic of an anti-boring student and educator, because I really see that it is a muscle. It's a muscle that both teachers and students have to build. And it's a slow process to get that bicep. Clearly, it's a slow process to build that muscle. Oh my goodness, I got so distracted by that muscle, I kind of lost my train of thought. So how about we just transition to the second characteristic that I wanted to cover? Anti-boring students and their educators prioritize, oh, such a good verb. I love it when I use good verbs. We prioritize
the itty bitty
and imperfect over giant and perfect, I should say, leaps. The least we need to know is a transformative concept, but itty bitty and imperfect is the thing that I find most of the educators who take my trainings struggle with. We are recovering perfectionists in this world of education, especially the kind of educator who's attracted to learning my toolkit inside my quirky world. We are perfectionists. And I actually think one reason many of you out there are attracted to me is because I've learned how to be playful instead of perfect. Believe me, it is hard, or was hard, for my system, even in these videos, to just hit play and just trust that whatever comes out of my mouth will be helpful and useful for the world to hear, and I don't have to craft a perfect outline and structure. I can trust that an itty-bitty idea and just diving in and creating something is going to be just the right thing to get us into action. And once we're into action, then we can build on that. Perfection comes or doesn't come over time, but it's never going to come if we try and be perfect before we actually take any action at all. And so it is this characteristic of an anti-boring student and educator that I want to focus on with my script that I want to give you to try out with students. And it's on the floor. So let me go get it. It really was on the floor. I just don't have room on this table for all my whiteboards. Stick around to the end of the series, by the way, and I'm going to give you a tour of what a disaster my place looks like on these video filming days. It's going to be pretty hilarious, I promise you. Anyway, here's your script. What's the smallest action you are willing to take now to move towards your goal? And you know what? I want to tell you, I even hesitated whether I should use the word goal here, because goal is it's a boring word. It's not an anti-boring word. So my preference in the script would be that you would replace the phrase your goal with to move towards getting tonight's history assignment done, or to move towards planning your research paper, or, fill in something more specific in place of this line here. But the powerful part of this question is, what's the smallest action you are willing to take now? And then to go ahead and coach a student through, okay, you said the smallest action is that you're gonna read your textbook. That's not a small action. That might take you an hour. What's a smaller action you can do now to start getting your reading going? And we just keep on asking that question. Oh, let's get even itty bittier.
even itty bittier.
Oh, there we go. Open your textbook to the page that starts the reading. Or even better, if you know my skimming techniques, open the textbook to the end of the chapter and spend 30 seconds paging through, right? That's an itty bitty technique that will actually help a student feel like, oh yeah, I could do that now. And the minute they have that, oh yeah, I would be willing to do that now, then we know we have found the least they need to do now to get into action. Good luck. Play around with that. Let us know how it worked and whether it created any transformations for the students that you are working with, or, even better, try practicing it for yourself. Maybe even post in the comments below what's the next thing you need to go do after you're done watching this video, and what's the least you need to do in order to get into action quickly with it, and practice workshopping that below. I would love to hear. And I'll see you in the next video, y'all. Take care.